Good afternoon. Good afternoon. On behalf of the Art of Teaching program, I would like to warmly welcome you to today's event, which is the first of 3 this week, falling under the heading of Education and Activism, the Legacy of the Black Panthers. I think we should just applaud that, first of all. And I would like to thank the following sponsors for funding the reception for this event, the Diversity and Activism Programming Subcommittee, and Filmmaking, Screenwriting, and Media Arts. Thanks so much. Please now welcome film professor Damani Baker to the stage.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I love that when it comes back. That's great. So what a beautiful day, and couldn't be a more appropriate time to have a film screening on movements and revolution. So thank you for joining us. I'm Damani Baker. I teach here in the filmmaking program. And this is what they call an Indie Lens pop-up. And so PBS is doing this very interesting thing where they are giving the film away and inviting communities to screen and have conversation about films that they have premiering in the next month or so. Today's Indie Lens pop-up is the Black Panthers, Vanguard of the Revolution by Stanley Nelson. This film will premiere later in the month, so check your listings as if you guys have listings. I was like, do we actually watch television? But watch this. It will be streaming online as well. So there's a pre-screening activity that I'm going to invite everyone to do. Everyone have a questionnaire. When you walked in, you should have all received. And so the upside is you fill out this questionnaire, and you are automatically entered to win $100 to spend at Amazon.com. And as you fill out your questionnaire, I have a challenge for you. And the challenge is, this is another way to actually get to know your neighbors as well. What words come to mind when you think of the Black Panther Party? What do you think of? What words come to mind when you hear the word Black Panthers? So fill out your form. Don't go outside the lines. And can we get that card up on the screen as well?
There are a lot of great movie franchises.
And so there's a part 2 to this questionnaire that you hold on to it and we'll revisit it at the end.
There are a lot of great.
So again, look at your neighbor next to you and share what words come to mind when you hear Black Panthers. Okay, great. Thank you for doing that. So hold on to your surveys. We'll revisit them at the end of the screening. And also, there's a sign-up sheet to join PBS's mailing list to find out more information about events happening this month in public television. You can go to hashtag IndieLens and follow them on @IndependentLens in social media. And so I just want to thank again the graduate Art of Teaching program. The DAPS is here. Is Natalie here? I didn't see her. Oh, great. And the Filmmaking, Screenwriting, and Media Arts program for their support making this event possible. It really is amazing. I'm an alum. I teach here. This is like an amazing thing to see 20 years later this summer. Sarah Lawrence's campus hosting a Black Panther film screening in our film buildings. It's pretty awesome. So enjoy the screening. Stick around afterwards. Komozi Woodard is here as well, and we will be having a short conversation after the film. So thank you for being here today. Just a reminder that this airs in its entirety February 16th on PBS, and I think our local affiliate is WNET Channel 13. I do have one little order of business. They've asked that we complete our questionnaire, and there's another question on the DVD. That'd be great if we can pop that on.
Can they hear you in there? Oh, okay.
The question is, describe one item you would want to see on a 10-point program for your own community. And so if you'll indulge me and fill out your questionnaire and describe that one item you'd love to see in your 10-point program to your neighbor. Okay, now tell your neighbor that one item you'd love to see in your 10-point program for your own community. Okay. Thank you. So hold on to your paper. We'll collect them as you guys exit. This is an honor to sit with Komozi today, my Don. Class of 96, and also my faculty Don as well, so this is a full circle moment that I'm really enjoying. And my first question is, do you remember the moment the Black Panther Party came into your own kind of personal consciousness? And where were you?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me? We were in Newark. I was in Newark, and many of us have been beaten. I was beaten by the police the first time I was 12 years old. So I was in the SNCC office with Phil Hutchins, who was the chair of SNCC at the time. And it was just a powerful symbol. Let's remember, like in the beginning, it was a tiny group out in Oakland. All this stuff about a national Black Panther Party, there is no idea that that's going to happen, right? And so there was a young group of people like us who were reading the same books we were reading, but they actually put this program together. But I think for many of us, I think what's lost for a lot of people trying to realize what that meant is that thousands of young people have been brutalized by the police all those years, and it had never occurred that you could do anything about it. When I got beat up by the police, told my mother and father, what were you going to do? You can't go back to the police department and beat you up again, right? So this idea that you could actually fight back, that was really a potent moment. And I think a lot of people really identified with the plight. We didn't know exactly what happened, but the plight of Huey Newton. So that became a big, big symbol for us. And we tried to watch each moment from that point on, the Young Lords, the Alliance of the Rainbow Coalition and stuff like that. The fact that they were college students in the beginning and we were college students reading it was really, so we tried to join the Black Panthers in Newark. We had about 150 people at the SNCC office one night, hot as hell. We had these fans and they weren't working. And we started at 7 o'clock. Around midnight, we let people go. Bobby C was supposed to come and recruit us to the party and he never showed up. And so I talked to Bobby years later in Philadelphia. I said, well, Bobby, we had 150 people there. What happened? He said, oh, man, I probably got drunk. So that was so I said, you blew that because we had 150 people. So that's why there wasn't an early Black Panther Party in Newark. And then we joined Baraka. Was so charismatic. All the women left SNCC to join Baraka, so I followed them. But yeah, but we would have been Panthers if they had, you know. And I guess it was like that. But the reason the Panthers became national is because of King's assassination. I think, you know, it's not because we were great organizers. People all over wanted to do something when King died, and if the Republic of New Africa was in your town, you joined that, right? Most groups didn't have the wherewithal to reach from California to New York, right? The Panthers had a vehicle to do that, and so people joined the Black Panther Party, but they could have just as easily joined any of the other organizations. That was just a luck of the draw. But there was no such thing as a National Black Panther Party in the beginning. It was a very local group. We identified with the symbolism and things like that, and most people formed like we did, the 150, you formed, and if you fell under that umbrella, you became a Panther. The other places, you never made it.
Well, it sounds like, I mean, there's, I'm actually thinking of my mother, who also kind of fell into her activism in that way, and in particular your generation and my mother's generation being the first on these campuses, on college campuses, mobilizing, trying to figure out kind of what the role they play in whichever movement they faced. And so she now tells me stories about her involvement in the Black Panther Party being a filling a void, filling a need, like a direct need that she saw. And in her case, it was the free breakfast program, because in Los Angeles, it's not in this edit, but the Los Angeles headquarters were attacked when they kind of talk about all of the headquarters being attacked by the feds and the police. And the one thing that the kids on campus didn't want to see fall apart was the free breakfast program. And they said, well, you know, people have been locked up. There's a big void. We're able students. We should show up and participate. And so that was her introduction to the Black Panther Party. So was there a direct kind of action that you felt that you could be a part of at the time?
Well, you know, you got to understand this moment in '68. Before King is assassinated, which is awful, there was an Orangeburg massacre in Orangeburg, South Carolina. So the National Guard came onto the campus and shot students. So our perception was that there was the beginning of genocide, right? And so people have been talking about it for quite a while. Then you start to get the fact that they're actually violating the basic rules by the military coming onto the campus. They shot a little high school kid who had come there to have a lunch program at Orangeburg massacre. And then they covered that up, right? And you know, Orangeburg, they had been trying to desegregate a bowling alley. So that was their big crime. So and then they killed King. And to my embarrassment, I had just quit the movement. You know, my timing is excellent. So I got mad and quit the movement April 3rd, 1968, the day before King was assassinated. So my first day out of the movement, I'm playing ping pong, so I just want to be a regular college student like everybody else. Have some fun. And to my embarrassment, it comes across the loudspeaker where I'm playing table tennis that King had been assassinated. So I think I, like many other people, made a vow. I said, okay, I won't quit again, because I'm calling him reformist and stuff like that. He died for the movement. So that, I think everybody had their personal hell the night that King died. And you were ashamed that you hadn't been more active. So whatever vehicle was there, people joined it, I guess. But the whole military sense is that we felt military. You know, I'm from Newark, so the military had come and shot into the public housing projects. A lot of people take that for granted now, but when there's no other precedent for the National Guard coming in and shooting to the people's homes. So there was a Cicero race riot in 1951, white people, they didn't shoot people's homes. So that's genocidal when you come into a community and they shot a mother of 9 and all that stuff like that. So we have clear indication that there were at least some people who had a whole lot of power who were trying to just kill us en masse. And so the Panther thing didn't shock me. The only thing was, would it work? Now, you know, I could have been killed like Fred Hampton. The police attacked our headquarters. I was working on a newspaper at night, and I heard a car strangely, you know, I knew it was speeding up, and I immediately knew somebody was going to shoot through the window. I fell behind the desk, pop, 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 you know, all that stuff went through the window, and contrary to all these stories, what I had was a baseball bat. So I looked at my baseball bat, and I heard the police trying to break this door. I decided to go out the back door. That's what you're right. That's why I'm still here. But so they, you know, it was pretty obvious what was going on here and stuff. But the Fred Hampton story did help me out. When I thought about what was going to happen, I said, let me get out of here. You know.
So how is it possible that I mean, this film has been made, thankfully, and I, my own work and teaching, process the systemic supremacy and the legacy of supremacy that continues to play itself out now. And I was watching this again, and I thought, where's the accountability? So in your years of service and your years of work, how do we then take enough time to pause and ask the hard questions of even some of the characters in this film when you say there are people alive today that are implicit or are responsible for the murders that we can now talk about? Because Fred Hampton's murder is 4 years before I was born, so we're not talking about 100 years ago.
Well, I doubt if anything that happened with that. You know, in Orangeburg, this is the irony of it. I mean, Cleve Sellers, who was convicted of a riot, he was just shot by the police that night. They put him in jail. His son became a state senator and pushed for reparations for that. He's on CNN now, I think. So I think the children are asking for or demanding some accountability, and some, you know, some of them are in elected office now. So, but it's, you know, the problem is they're killing a whole new generation of people. I think what the film shows is that a great number of people who were in the movement were little children. Sometimes they were 12 years old when they joined, sometimes 15, all that stuff like that. So I was older, I was like at least 18, right? So, but we were kids. And so that's what you're dealing with. And there was one case, we had a big Black Panther program in Newark. Subsequently, there was a Black Panther party in Newark. And the guy explained that when the FBI raided the place where he was at, and they came out with their hands up, the FBI said, oh, these are children. I think he was 12 years old. And then he went to federal prison. So I think that's what we're trying to, in terms of retelling the story, we're looking much more at, we used to look at the college activists, but now we're looking at the high school student strikes, the walkouts, the fact that they were black and Chicano and white, anti-war, and things like that, teach-ins, and it's just amazing what little children can do. Right, when you think back on how young those people were, I think that part of it is a hopeful story. I think we had Chacha Jimenez here, who talked about his conversion from being a gangster to serving his community, and he's still doing it at 69. Right, so I think that's the more hopeful thing, is that you can do something in your community. You can change your life. I mean, I think that's the enduring message there. In terms of government accountability, I don't expect much of that. I took evidence to several state attorney generals, and they almost laughed in my face. I had files and files of things. They said, you know, they said, we don't really care if somebody's guilty. We just care about who wins the next election. So I lost my naivete about whether they actually pursued the law. Matter of fact, I had a negotiation with some of Nixon's people and in the 70s, and my lawyer sat there and said, well, everything you're proposing is illegal. And Nixon's people said, well, technically you're right. It's illegal today, but we have some people in Congress, it'll be legal next week. So I said, okay. That's just sense of justice, right? That, you know, so that's the conniving they were up to at the time. So that's what we were dealing with. But, you know, think about it. We brought Johnson down when we started out against the war, everybody thought we were crazy. you don't want to kill the Vietnamese, right? You know, so, but we ended up bringing that president down. We ended up bringing Nixon down, right? So we were young people, but a lot changed because we did that. And I'm horrified. But you know, the most radical speeches we made at the time about the urban crisis pale in comparison to what really happened to these cities. You know, we were complaining about the dropout rate back in the 60s, how horrible that was. The dropout rate is about 3 times the size now, right? So the crisis is from urban crisis to urban catastrophe, including Katrina and New Orleans. But people aren't doing much about it. I mean, even the Flint thing,
right.
You know?
So is it a revolutionary act that where you're waiting? Is that the only option, in your opinion?
You know,
Because people are scared. That word seems to terrify people, and I'm not sure why. Because we're built on it, and we created heroes.
I think the thing, you got movements going on now. I think like when the big thing, when you know a movement's coming is when they torture a Faneuil Hamer, and people don't run away from her, but they run to help her, right? And you see people doing that now. When someone's being abused now, people are running toward that. That's a movement moment there. And a movement comes, or a revolution or rebellion comes when people feel enough self-worth that this abuse is unacceptable. I think you've seen the outrage in Flint, with people saying, hey, this is unacceptable. So I think we have to be really more conscious of, why should this be acceptable for you to treat people like that? And so that's where rebellion is different things you do. It could be, think about it, feeding the children. I think the one thing we've left out is that the Black Panthers was feeding white and black children. Right? That's left out of history. We put that in our book, Groundwork, is that we got the evidence in Des Moines they were feeding just hungry children.
And then it was actually adopted by public schools
right
across the country, nationwide.
Yeah, so it's not, you know, so it's not just like black children were hungry during those days, but all these children were hungry. And we were doing it with the churches, and they leave that out, a lot of these stories there. So it was a massive movement. I think as a kid, I was just proud to see the adults in my community stand up and protest the conditions we were in. It just made me feel that they cared so much about me. And I think we kind of miss that now. So, you know, you think it doesn't matter and stuff like that. But if you're a little kid listening to the adults in your community, you used to have hundreds of adults complain to the city and stuff like that. I just sat there in high school and said, wow, I must be important.
Essentially, in this current project, you know, I've been obviously speaking to my mother a lot about her experiences, interviewing Angela Davis and many other kind of just brilliant women that are part of how I have imagined the world. And so, you know, I show up as a filmmaker and I have all these questions, and I think I'm going to walk out and I'm like, you know, just take charge and just go for it. And what was consistent in all of our conversations over the past few years making this project is they all came back to this idea of imagining a more livable world. The simplicity of a world that is livable. And that being the kind of anchor in their activism. Even though, you know, they're philosophers, they're thinkers, they are on the front lines of many things that they're doing, but this simple idea of imagining a better world as the anchor of their movement and moving, you know, people around them forward, is that something that you hold on to outside of the kind of physical work that you do as well?
Oh yeah, no, I was working with communities that were imagining. We were developing housing, and people would sit in a meeting and talk about the kind of living conditions they wanted, and particularly the senior citizens. I think one of the most tragic moments I witnessed is we were asking the senior citizens what housing they wanted, what they wanted to look like, and they asked, "What else is there?" We've only lived in ghettos all of our lives, and we forced the housing authority to give us a bus and take them outside of the ghetto so they could see how other people lived. But that really hit me. You know, here I had gone to college and I had been outside of the ghetto, right? But the senior citizens, many of them had never been outside the ghetto, which was, that was really telling. But they once they took that trip, they had all kinds of ideas about how they wanted a better life and stuff like that. So sometimes when we're down on the students, or people say, well, you know, you don't have any ideas about that, let them take a trip outside of the ghetto, and they have a lot of ideas. But if they've only been, there's a new school they built in Newark. This is before Raz Baraka was elected mayor. And it was right across the street from the public housing project, and I had tears in my eyes taking pictures of it. It was an elementary school that looked worse than the public housing project. It had no windows. It was a prison. So I looked, and they spent $15 million on that school. Right? And I said, oh my God, you know, what crime did these children commit? When they walk into school, they walked into a prison that looks worse than the public housing project they're walking out of, right? So that's, I think, at that level. But for me, what I'm always thinking about, and probably you might get one about it too, is what can I say to my children when they ask me why the world is like this? And I want to be able to say I did as much as I could. And now it's your turn. Right? But you do have that accountability when your children are going to walk and ask you, why is the school still segregated there? Right? Why are the police treating me like this and stuff like that? And you're going to have to we have to answer that question. And I always wanted to be able to answer that question with honestly, instead of telling my child to shut up. Right? So I guess it's that level that I thought that was my gauge for it. Yeah, any
5
questions?
minutes, yeah, any questions, yeah?
So I have so of course the free breakfast for kids program is like the most successful, widely known program that the Black Panthers had. But they had, you know, when I checked the list when I was doing research on the Black Panthers when I was an undergrad, they had like, you know, in total across the board like 60-something programs.
Yeah, maybe 100.
It's, you know, everything from free busing, free laundry, legal services, like you name it. Like they were like looking to serve the community.
The Telling program was free shoes.
Free shoes.
Ever since emancipation, shoes has been a big issue, and you can tell the mark of poverty if you don't even have shoes. So they had a free shoe program. So after the New Deal, you have to ask, why is it that only certain communities needed a free food or free shoe program? Native Americans, Mexican Americans, Puerto Ricans, blacks, right? People left out of the New Deal. Oh, I'm sorry, you had
Yeah,
it.
so no, I was just asking, like, you know, what are some of these programs that you saw were flourishing at different chapters of the Black Panther program?
Oh, but each community had its own needs, and so people were inventive. They responded to, you know, drugs was a big thing, right? So, you know, they developed acupuncture, and, you know, up in the Bronx where we sat in the old Lincoln Hospital, we got a new Lincoln Hospital for the whole community. Right, so some of these things we have to say worked, and that's why the community had the infrastructure it has now, right? When you look back at it, all the generations before us did the same things we did. Father Divine had a free breakfast program. He fed a lot of people. He built housing and things like that. So each generation is doing the same programs with a different pattern. Right? But the more we look back at it, it's not like we created that. Those ideas were out there already, and people always, sad to say, these communities have always needed free food and free housing and on and on and on just to survive. That's just since emancipation. That's been the burden that each generation has. We always want to think that we're a new generation, we're doing it differently because we don't want to be like our parents, right? But when you look at it and you get sober about it, we're doing the same thing our parents did, and we're building infrastructure over and over again because they keep tearing things down.
I just want to say thank you to Komozi. And also thank you just really for being here today. This was incredibly special. And to the filmmakers and artists in the room, I have one challenge for you. You must continue to produce work with integrity. You have to. I'll tell you a quick story, just as giving a shout out to the filmmakers who made this piece. That archival footage does not come without an incredible cost. to tell this story, to gather that much information, to share this piece of history with you, takes an incredible amount of resources, mind-boggling. I mean, NBC, who owns, I think, a lot of the stuff that you've seen, is $100 a second. And so when you think about how stories are told and who tells them, the most pristine and precious material that these networks are capturing are our stories, our histories. They have the resources to get the first team there on, CNN is the first one to helicopter someone to Katrina. They're the first one at Angela Davis's trial. They have the crew, they have the resources, they have the teams to do it. And then they sell it back to us. And there's something completely terrifying about that cycle. And so it is up to us, and we have to continue to make things available to people. We have to continue to produce work and keep it grounded in the community and keep it grounded in making it available to people so that these do not disappear and aren't owned by General Electric. That's all. That's the end of class today.